Well, good evening. You are watching the BAK Talk Bros channel, and this is BAK Talk, and I am Keas the K in back. And on tonight's episode, we're going to hit some free agency. We're going to talk about the Mahomes restructure, and we'll hit some chat, Q&A, and more. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hit that intro.
Y'all ready for them Chiefs? Y'all ready for them Chiefs?
Well, good evening again. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of BAK Talk Bros, BAK Talk with the BAK Talk Bros here. And this is the first day, the first official day of the season of the NFL. It has been for the last 4.5 hours now. We've had a crazy couple of days or so of legal tampering, and today's the first day. This afternoon is the first day that things can actually become official. Trades, free agent signings, not re-signings, but free agent signings and whatnot. And Knight is with us here. Hey, Knight, good to see you. And of course, the big news so far for the Chiefs has been the monster contract that Brett Veach and Clark Hunt handed out to Chris Jones to bring him back. Currently, L'Jarius Sneed has been franchise tagged. Supposedly, his agent has been told that they can seek a trade, but Sneed has said he wants to stay in Kansas City. So we'll see what happens. The Chiefs have brought back Chris Jones. They've also brought back Mike Pennell, who was someone I was really hoping we would see back. Of course, Drew Tranquil is back as well. Nick Allegretti is gone to the Commanders, who are collecting Chiefs former offensive linemen. Willie Gay to the Saints, who have been collecting Chiefs defensive players over the last few years. And there's still plenty of former Chiefs out there who have not signed anywhere as of yet, at least that I'm aware of. Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, Mike Edwards, a few that pop up on the defensive side, and Mike Dana, someone I would really like for them to get back, but I'm not holding my breath on. I saw some projections before legal tampering started, valuing him at $15 million a year. I'm going to say that's probably not going to be numbers he's going to be able to hit, given that here we are, day one of the actual official league year, and Mike Dana hasn't been signed yet. So you never know what's going to happen there. But the fact that some team hasn't thrown him money yet kind of leads me to believe he's not going to get close to $15 million a year. But I don't think he has to get, I think even if a team offers him half of that, he's gone. Kansas City's not offering Mike Dana like $7.5 million. I'm not even sure that they would offer $5 million. These are guys that have been Mike Dana, like Nick Allegretti, are two guys who have been really, really good role players for the Chiefs. If he gets his money, can be happy for him. If he doesn't get his money, I'm sure Brett Veach will stay in touch with him. On the offensive side, the Chiefs decided not to tender Jody Fortson. Jet McKinnon and CEH are officially free agents. Trying to think all these guys off the top of my head. Blaine Gabbert, last year's backup quarterback. There's not a whole lot of guys that I'm going to say feel very pressing to bring back. Blake Bell, just not very many guys. Oh, speaking of the tight end room, though, the Chiefs did agree to terms with Irv Smith Jr. So we'll see what that has in store for the Chiefs there. But yeah, not a whole lot of movement, but it's been good to see some of those guys get back here. Chris Jones being the main one, at least for now. L'Jarius Sneed could be a Kansas City Chief moving forward. They have the cap space. There's been rumors that the Titans, the Steelers, the Colts, there was rumors of the Vikings and Lions. The Lions have now made a couple moves to shore up their cornerback position, so I got to believe they're out. But yeah, there's been a lot of active teams in free agency as well. The Commanders, the Panthers, the Titans, a lot out there has a lot of craziness has kind of taken place so far. But yeah, Knight says Indy and Tennessee asked about Sneed. Yeah, I think there's about 4, 5, 6 teams I've heard so far who've been connected to him. Tranquil is a great signing. Yeah, it's great to have him re-sign with Kansas City. It sucks to lose Willie Gay, but the writing has probably been on the wall for a couple of years now, despite how, as Chiefs fans, we've liked him and certainly Spags has been hesitant to play him like a starter over the last year or two. So maybe we should have seen this coming, but yeah, hopefully Willie Gay can prove it in New Orleans and do the best he can do. Knight says most of the unsigned defensive guys could be back. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. It's going to have to be at the right price. Most of the guys on the defensive side, like it's going to have to basically be vet minimum to come back, somewhere close to that to come back. And it can happen. It's just going to take, other teams not really having a whole lot of interest in those guys. And we could see, but Brett Veach, while other teams have been going after all these high price targets, Brett Veach has been, working to bring back their guys, right? I mean, even Mike Pennell, bringing him back at this point wasn't something I expected to see so early, right? And so it kind of tells you how they're valuing these guys and the fact that they're making these offers early while bigger names are getting their money. I think it's strategic on Veach's part. And I think it tells you they're prioritizing bringing these guys back. The rest of the guys that we haven't agreed to terms with yet, those are guys that I think Veach's stance is basically, hey, if you want to come back and three-peat with us and you're not getting offers out there to your liking, come back for another year. We've seen that in the last 2 or 3 years, how they've operated. And so I think the guys that are still there, that's kind of where they're at. If you're not getting a starter deal somewhere else, if you're not getting, $3, $5, $8 million deals out there, you're not getting multi-year deals or whatever, and you want to come back for a year, here's $1.5 million. It's going to be waiting there on the table for you, and whatever it is, is so. Teams are there's still some big names on the board, offensively and defensively. So it could take a little bit for some of these teams, and some of these guys might wait a while and see, if an injury pops up. Now all of a sudden a team comes calling. So Dana, Wharton, Edwards all contributed to winning this last Super Bowl. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It would be nice to have all of them back. I don't think that, especially with the salary cap where it is for the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs can just afford, those are guys that they're going to view as replaceable. Great contributors, but, they have that next man up mentality. And if these guys get paid somewhere else, great for them. But there are other guys out there of probably equal talent who are free agents as well that we could just as easily bring back, including guys who've already been here before, right? As far as I know, Emmanuel Ogbah is still a free agent. Our old pal from Super Bowl 54, Kendall Fuller, is a free agent. Like, there are guys out there, right? So, we're a little nostalgic. I'd love for Dana to be back. Wharton never has really bloomed, I think, the way that we might have expected him to, just the way he made the team his first year. And I don't think you can complain about Edwards. But again, if these guys get more money, all power to them. But like I said, they're willing to come back for, I think, probably most of these guys, $2 million tops, Of course, Hunter Renfrow is also a free agent. Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, Hollywood Brown. These guys are out there. A couple of these guys just got cut from their AFC West teams today. So, maybe they want to do the Drew Tranquil thing and see red and see Super Bowl trophies and, kind of give the proverbial middle finger to their former AFC West teams. I don't know. Dan is in the chat while at work. Dan Talks Football. Make sure you guys check out his channel. He goes live every Tuesday and Friday night, 7 p.m. Arrowhead time, and has a lot of content out there. We'll be doing a lot of draft stuff as well. Dan says, hey, at work, want to show some love. Get the likes up. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Dan's taking care of us here, guys. If you like our content, make sure you give a like, a share, and if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, go ahead and join the BAK Talk Bros family. Knight says Renfrow and Brown are wide receivers we should at least ask about. Yeah, and I think any of the guys, who are left out there, Mike Williams on a Donovan Smith type of contract, very heavily incentive laden, I think makes some sense. Probably the exact opposite of the kind of contract you would give Hollywood Brown. Renfrow, to me, Renfrow is you're replacing the bottom of your wide receiver depth chart type of thing, right? Rashee Rice, you would probably prefer him to be your number 2. MVS is gone, obviously getting cut. You have Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney still on the roster, Justin Ross. No disrespect to those guys, but if you can start replacing the bottom guys as well as the top guys, and you can do that in free agency and the draft, right? Like, you can get your number 1 in one of those two areas. You can also start getting rid of your number 5 or number 6, number 4, number 3 guys and start getting better talent there as well. You can work it from both ends. So Knight says Williams has an injury issue and is over 30. He's played 15 games every year, but this last year, I get the over 30 part. Again, that's why for me, it would have to be a very incentive laden deal. And maybe there's a team out there with a lot of cap space who would throw money at him and guarantee, a year and give him a 2 or 3 year contract. But to me, it's got to be a 1 year at that age, you got to prove it, right? And I think it would be smart to anyway, to be honest, at this point, after all the receivers who are gone, as deep as this wide receiver draft class is, I think at that point, coming off this injury, that's got to be your smart money if you believe in yourself. But certainly still makes sense on a heavily incentive based contract for 2024, right? But yeah, you definitely don't want him to be your premium guy, and you don't want to exhale if you sign him. Like, it's kind of a Jet McKinnon issue, right? I love Jet, and I'd love to have him back on the practice squad. You cannot, and no disrespect to him, you cannot give Jerick McKinnon a 53-man roster spot. You can't do it. You can't give him a contract to where you have to. McKinnon at this point is someone who you put on your practice squad. Like, that's basically it. You put him on your practice squad. If you elevate him, if you have injuries or whatever, and you elevate him 2 or 3 games, fine. If things work out in the playoffs and he's healthy, fine, because those elevations reset for the playoffs, right? But you can't put him on a roster. What we did this last year is, at points, we completely wasted a roster spot by having McKinnon on it. And we tried to protect him, we tried to keep him healthy, and then what happened? Like, so you can't do it. And, Mike Williams isn't someone, like, you have to probably count on carrying 6 wide receivers again, and you can't really count on having him for the full season. But if you get him those 15 games, then, you're better off for it when he's playing in those 15 games. So, absolutely. It'll be interesting. I would expect we're going to see some undrafted free agents make this roster, possibly. You're going to see some vet minimum free agents, over the next month or so, maybe the next 2 months. I think Donovan Smith signed like the beginning of May last year, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. You're going to see stuff like that. And don't forget, we're a couple weeks away from the USL. I think they're calling themselves now after the merger. You might see a player or two emerge from that league and get a contract with the Chiefs, get a training camp invite. You're going to see guys make this team in different ways. And, outside of maybe a incentive laden deal for someone like Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, maybe you have a legit deal with Hollywood Brown. Outside of those kinds of things, I don't see much more than vet minimum happening in Kansas City. It's just not going to. Unless Veach trades Snead and clears up money, and they have some particular guys out there that they've been targeting who haven't been signed yet. So, Knight says in 3 games this last season, he had almost as many yards as MVS had for the whole season. Yeah, Williams made some crazy catches too, right? Like, I think he was injured or got re-injured in one of his games against the Chiefs. And I think it was the play he got injured on. He made a hell of a catch, if I recall correctly. Maybe as a play or two before. But Mike Williams can freaking catch. And another thing he can do is actually help your wide receiver room, right? Oozing with talent. It's just the health thing. So, but yeah, there's some moves to be made out there. And, we'll see what Veach does. But one thing we know is, he has his plan A through Z at each position. And so he might get surprised that something happens, but he probably still has a plan for it, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, we'll see. We don't have the draft picks that we've had in previous years, but that could change, right? A Snead trade could change all of that, and you never know what's going to happen there. But Patrick Mahomes had his contract get restructured yesterday. I want to choose my words well, because Adam Schefter tweeted this out yesterday, and it's clear, or it seems clear, the language he used, that the news came from Mahomes' agents, because the headline was that Patrick Mahomes restructured his contract for the Chiefs, which is absolutely false. It's not what happened. We all love Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a hero, superhero on the field. Patrick Mahomes has been a superhero in signing the contracts he signed with the structure that he has agreed to at signing. He's a superhero for that. But he's not a superhero yesterday, in the sense that people kind of reacted to Adam Schefter's tweet, because Patrick Mahomes did not do a thing with his contract. Brett Veach did. Brett Veach did not have to get Patrick Mahomes' permission. When you take a restructured contract in this sense, you're talking about Patrick Mahomes' roster bonus. He has yearly roster bonuses the next 3 or 4 years. Okay. Those get paid out May 5th each year, according to his contract. They're guaranteed a year earlier, but they get paid out on May 5th. What Brett Veach done was took $27 million of Patrick Mahomes' $34.9 million roster bonus. Brett Veach, not Patrick Mahomes. And he converted that into signing bonus, which allowed the Chiefs to save $21.46 million, whatever it was, against our cap for this year. That $27 million gets spread out for 5 years as signing bonus. It gets added on to the signing bonus that he already had, counting against the cap. So 2024, 25, 26, 27, and 28 all now have an extra $5.4 million of signing bonus, counting there against Patrick Mahomes' cap number. He didn't have anything for 2028, so this is a fresh $5.4 million for him for that year. Patrick Mahomes didn't do anything. In fact, Patrick Mahomes was a beneficiary of this, because now, instead of having to wait till May 5th, he got that money the moment Brett Veach converted it into signing bonus. So he got it about 2 months earlier than he would have got it. He was going to get it anyway. He was guaranteed to get it. He got it about 2 months earlier. So it's a win for him. The Chiefs got that $21 million in cap space. So it was a win for them. Everybody's happy. And, again, Mahomes agreed to this intentional structuring so that Brett Veach could do this as he wanted each year. You can do it once each year, each league year, right? Patrick Mahomes is a superhero for signing the contract. He's not a superhero for restructuring his contract yesterday, because he had no part in it. So just want to make sure that we're clear there, right? Because people are like, I saw a lot of false praising of Mahomes yesterday for being a team player and restructuring his contract, when he didn't have a say in it and he didn't have a part in it outside of originally signing the contract to let Brett Veach do that, right? And Brett Veach will do this every year because that's the way the contract is written. The only time that a GM needs permission to do this type of restructuring, right, the roster bonus to signing bonus, is to add void years on there, right? If the contract isn't 5 years old, if you got a contract that is only like a 3-year contract or 4-year or even a 2-year contract, right? And the GM wants to add some void years on there. And the reason you would add void years on there is so that that roster bonus, when it gets converted to signing bonus, it counts equally for those 5 years, right? You got a $25 million roster bonus, say. You only have a player under a 3-year contract. You want to add 2 more void years to it. So that $25 million roster bonus becomes $5 million a year counted against the cap as signing bonus. So that's when you need the player's permission. So yeah, Knight says, yeah, he has great hands. So yeah, in essence, it's something, it's somewhere around there, 15 million, 15.6. Yeah, it's somewhere around there. That we have, and of course, Sneed's salary, Sneed's franchise tag is something like 19 million or so currently against the cap. So that 15 million is extra, right? We didn't need that for Sneed at this point. But if we trade Sneed, then you're going to end up with somewhere around $34 million in cap space, which would definitely open things up for the Chiefs moving forward. Although most, free agents are gone at this point. So, there's just not a whole lot there unless you want to get really crazy and go after, veteran free agents who shouldn't be on the market. Right. Like a Justin Simmons. As far as I know, he's still out there in free agency, right? So, unless they for some reason wanted to, like there was just some guy like that for some reason who completely unexpectedly available. There's been a lot of talk about Joey Bosa getting cut by the Chargers. That could be maybe the type of move where you trade, get Snead traded, and you find yourself with $34 million in cap space. But the biggest problem is Kansas City, is still far away. And I don't know how much over the cap has been keeping up with things. It looks like they got caught up for the most part today. But there's still teams out there. Hopefully you can see this fairly well. There's still teams out there that have significantly more cap space than Kansas City. According to Over the Cap, the Titans still have $72 million. Commanders still have 68 million. Patriots have 57 million. Bears have 56 million. The Bengals have 45 million. The Broncos have 44 million. There's a good dozen or so teams ahead of Kansas City, including the Vikings and Raiders and Steelers and Texans and Lions, Eagles, plenty of playoff teams ahead of Kansas City, who has $15 million, 15.3 is what it's saying right now, to play with. So, even with a trade of Snead, that gets you to 34 million. There's still about 8 or 9 teams that have more cap space. So, but listen, I haven't been stressing too much over this simply because Brett Veach has broken my heart too many times for me to get fully invested in free agency. If I wanted to get to that point, I would just open up Madden and I would play some franchise so I could have my fun there. But yeah. Well, we've hit free agency. We've hit the Mahomes restructure. Right now, I'm here to answer questions in the chat, and then we'll call it a night here. Won't stay on too long tonight, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. I'm not sure if Gooch or Aaron will be able to jump in, but I'm on spring break this week, so I had a little extra time. But coaching flag football, so first time doing that, and my assignment is kindergarten through first grade, so it's like we're going right into the deep end with learning to coach flag football. We're going for it. The hardest difficulty, all Madden, kindergarten and first grade kids. Yeah, we'll have a lot of fun there. But yeah. Knight says free agency and the draft are like playing poker. Sometimes you get the cards you need, and sometimes you can't draw a card. Yeah. You know, it reminds me of a tweet that I saw today by I don't know what the guy was going after, but basically said that Brett Veach and Clark Hunt needed to sign Justin Jefferson, despite the fact that he's not a free agent, right? Like you can't force the Vikings to trade with you, right? This isn't Madden. You can't go in there, and do franchise mode offline and be the commissioner of the league and change your settings to force the trade. Hey, listen, I'd love to have Justin Jefferson. I would be in favor of probably a lot of trade scenarios to make that happen, but it takes two to tango, right? And so, you can't just be like crazy and just like, uh just ignore the fact that you can only control so much, right? And that's the same with free agency and draft, as Knight saying here, like we've seen how many drafts have we seen a guy projected to go in the second round or even the fourth or fifth or sixth round, end up like a shocking first round pick. It's happened, you know, or even second round pick. Like you can't control what other GMs are going to do. And sometimes they'll throw you a curveball. You can't control what a free agent might do. And so, yeah, it is what it is. But I think that's one of the things where like Brett Veach and this front office try to do their best to be prepared. Each position, each contract question, they have their plans A through Z, right? If this happens, great. Then we go to point 2. If it doesn't happen, then we go to, plan B, and if plan B doesn't happen, we go to plan C. And if that happens, all right, now we go to C.2 and so on and so on. I'm sure that they have all their stuff mapped out. But again, there can be some curveballs out there. So, we'll see. From what I've seen, Brett Veach seems to have a pretty good pulse on free agent value and interest over the last couple of years. Don't discount the possibility of Snead coming back. I don't think you can discount the possibility that Veach knew Snead's market better than he and his agents did. And you tag him and you let him talk to the other teams because then he finds out what his market is, right? And then you can actually begin to have real negotiations where the agent and the player now understand the truth that you've been trying to tell them for months. But who knows? We'll see. That could be right on. It could be way off. So rose-colored bandwagon fans think they know best. It's Madden. It's a crazy mindset. But I try to accept we all, I try to accept that fans have to progress through a level of, ignorance and immaturity to a place of, continually learning and becoming mature as fans. It's when fans just kind of, have no intentions of growing, right? That is kind of irritating, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen lots of first round busts. So, right. And that, I think that's one reason why I think the Chiefs will have a list of veteran guys, right? Who they're going to be around during training camp. You get your draft picks, you get your undrafted free agents in, and your USL guys in, some of the futures guys, they've already signed contracts. You get some of those guys in, and you're in the off season, you're doing workouts and stuff, and you're already seeing, okay, maybe this guy isn't who we thought he was. You call up you pull out your veteran free agent Rolodex and you start calling agents. So, well, anything else you guys want to talk about here, really quick? Otherwise, we'll wrap up early and call it a night. By the way, whoop, right there. Just in case there are any fans of other channels out there or teams out there. Super Bowl 58 champions. So, had to wear it. Probably shouldn't have wore it, but I had to wear it. So, got to show it off. Right. That I believe that's the official hat. My wife surprised me with that. Um it's part of her Valentine's gift to me. Not much sweeter than that. So, well, I think we hit all the main highlights, right? We talked free agents we brought back. Um, I talked a little bit about some free agents I'd like to see come in. I've seen people talk about J.K. Dobbins. Um, for me, McKinnon, I'd like back as a practice squad guy. You know, maybe he doesn't find a contract out there. Maybe he's willing to come back and be a guy on the practice squad. I like McKinnon. When he's healthy, he's great, right? Just fabulous. Great pass protector. Last time we saw him healthy, he still had burst. Good receiver out of the backfield. Austin Eckler was a guy that I would have loved to had. Tyron Smith is a much more talented version of last year's Donovan Smith signing. Did David Bakhtari get signed? If he did, I missed that. But he was released from the Packers. I could have missed him getting signed somewhere. I don't know if I did or not. But Tyron Smith, I think, is a guy, such a high upside, but the injury, stuff has been there, like David Bakhtari. That's how high level left tackles, end up still out there. And those are a couple guys that would be interesting. J.K. Dobbins would be interesting. Obviously we talked about Hollywood Brown, um, Mike Williams on the right kind of contract. On the offensive side, I don't think you're going to see much more, um, simply for cap reasons. Um, unless Snead gets moved, then it might be something different. But, Nick Allegretti and Mike Dana are a couple guys that I think are going to be a bit harder to replace and going to kind of hurt because Allegretti was like such a super sixth offensive lineman, and you could count on him, to just be ready to step in as a starter when you needed. And the fact is, we don't know how Tooney is going to progress, but the offensive guard market has just went crazy. So, good for Allegretti. It's going to be a little hard to replace him, but they're between Andy Heck and Andy Reid and Brett Veach. I think you have the right guys there to find your Nick Allegretti replacement. And you might already have him. You might have him in Mike Caliendo. I don't know. Defensively, I don't think there's a lot of holes to fill. Even if you end up trading Snead instead of extending him, listen, I've said this multiple times. I believe 100% that they were hoping to see Najee Johnson show them that they could live without Snead. And then he got injured in training camp, and I think that kind of screwed that part of it up. But I still think they saw enough pre-injury, right? Najee Johnson, from all the reports, was going to be cornerback number 3 and had beat out Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, or at least was ahead of them on the depth chart. By the way, Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson spent a greater percentage of their snaps pressing than L'Jarius Sneed did, and they had a higher grade while doing so. That's not where we're going to miss L'Jarius Sneed. It's not going to necessarily be the pressing, right? And Trent McDuffie was like the exact opposite, but you kind of expect that, from his size. You're going to miss out on the versatility, but I think that's where you hope that Najee Johnson comes back healthy and he can be that replacement, right? Snead and Johnson both played cornerback and safety in college. Najee Johnson started out, was drafted, I believe, in Kansas City as a safety, and he already was starting to get those corner safety snaps. You have Najee Johnson and you have Chamari Connor, both, kind of in that same area, right? Connor in the playoffs, when he had to step in, looked like a freaking stud, looked like the best safety out on the field. Whether he gets used that way, whether he and Johnson give Spags some of that flexibility back, right? You have Snead. If Najee Johnson does it, if Chamari Connor does it, right? Before Snead, it was Kendall Fuller, Super Bowl 54 that season. Kendall Fuller was kind of playing that cornerback safety hybrid for Spags. Really sucked that, he left and went back to Washington, but he wanted to go back. He's a free agent right now. But, those guys playing that kind of hybrid position, gives Spags that flexibility. If you have Najee Johnson who can kind of do both, if you have Chamari Connor who can kind of do both, if Brian Cook comes back healthy, you have Justin Reed now as he gets more and more comfortable in this offense or defense with how fast he's picking it up. Deion Bush is back. I forgot about him. More of a special teams guy and kind of that emergency safety guy. But, you kind of get that versatility in the room there. And we haven't even talked about Nick Jones. Who's the other cornerback that has completely slipped my mind that got injured? If Gooch was here, I know he would tell me. So, you're looking at a room there, a defensive back room, that I don't think you feel like you have to make any moves. right? I don't think they feel like they have to make. I don't think they feel like they have to draft a cornerback to replace Snead. Is what I'm getting at, right? I think if a cornerback or a safety falls to them in a certain round that they have a high grade on and haven't expected to be around, they might take that guy. But I don't think that's an issue on the defensive side of the ball. Linebacking group, even losing Willie Gay, you have Tranquil, you have Bolton. Chanel came on like a force. That's three legit dudes right there. I would expect they're still going to be looking for another one. Um, but that's not something that you have to attack early in the draft, or you really have to worry about throwing any kind of money at in free agency, right? You brought back Chris Jones. You still have George Karlaftis. You're hoping FAU takes a step forward. You drafted BJ Thompson last year as well. You lost Naughty and Wharton and Dana, but you brought back Mike Pennell, who was a hell of a run stopper. Um, maybe you bring in a vet guy there or two. But if we're being honest about Naughty and Wharton, those are fairly easily replaceable guys with what they ended up being. Not where we expected their ceiling to be, but where they ended up being. Which kind of sucks. But the interior defensive line play next to Chris Jones hasn't been great. You're going to be without a Menahue for probably half a season. When you get him back, and if he comes back, healthy, and looks as good as he did before the injury, which was terrible in the AFC Championship game, you got Jones, a Menahue, and Karlaftis as three legit dudes. Preferably Amina who's on the outside. You have Pennell for rundowns. You still need some more dudes in there for rundowns. But for me, if there was one defensive position I would really like them to go after, it would be another interior guy next to Chris Jones, a legit all-around guy. A guy on the inside to where if they want to double and triple Chris Jones, they're going to be screwed because this guy is still going to get through, just as easily. And if they want to rotate a Menahue and Karlaftis, in like that, fine, great. But I think it should be more sparingly than it has been. Offensively, though, it's not a shock that we're talking about wide receivers. You're thinking about life after Travis Kelce, drafting his replacement, for 1, 2, 3 years from now. Backup quarterback is kind of a big question, right now. If they go with another vet dude, Brian Hoyer just got released by the Raiders. So they like bringing in Tom Brady's former backups. So that's another one. But offensive line, wide receiver room, are kind of the big ones. I don't know if they're going to invest a draft pick or much free agent money for another running back. So we have a few holes, not big holes, outside of maybe wide receiver. There are some definitely you can improve on the defensive line. Definitely, you can improve the wide receiver room, the running back room over the backup quarterback. Just not a bunch of big needs. I would still like to see them upgrade the talent, though, because at some point you have to legitimately look at what other teams are doing, playoff teams that made their championship games. The Lions got a hell of a lot better on defense on paper. The 49ers didn't get worse so far. The Eagles have gotten better on paper. The Ravens got better on paper. The Bengals getting Joe Burrow back got better. Signing Geno Smith and doing a little bit more to try to replace losing Jesse Bates made them better. And then you have, the Texans looked really freaking good. And they had all this money and they've gotten better. And so the Packers, the Packers looked really good for stretches last season. If they can sustain that, that's going to be another. I mean, the good thing is that all these really great NFC teams, only one of them, is going to be facing you in the Super Bowl if you make it, right? So Knight says Buffalo's back end got weaker now that Poyer has gone 100%. So, I think overall, I don't know that I could really say that the Bills have improved. Getting Matt Milano back healthy, back to where he was, might be their biggest move that they could possibly make anyway. If they went out and got Mike Williams and he stayed healthy, that would be a hell of a move, But the last I checked, and I already closed out, I want to say the Bills were right there at the edge of cap hell themselves. So, I think they're going to need a good draft here. I don't want to turn this into a divisional, preview. I felt like though the Dolphins got worse. Maybe the Jets got better. Maybe you want to say, again, Aaron Rodgers being healthy, is going to make the Jets better. And we're doing all this, before there's even been a draft. And it's still only the first official day of free agency. But yeah, I mean, you had teams where it wasn't like you were not barely beating teams in the playoffs, right? We didn't necessarily have dominant wins in the playoffs. And if you're basically staying the same, or if you trade Snead, right, and you're relying on other cornerbacks to get better while watching your AFC championship foe and the Ravens, and I don't know what Derrick Henry will end up being. But if you see them on paper, and I don't think necessarily they've gotten better. I think that defense, did they lose stars? No, but they lost a lot of pieces. And they lost a hell of a lot of their defensive coaching staff. And I think that's what makes it harder. When you maintain a decent chunk of your defensive coaching staff, you can be fine, having your defensive coordinator leave and go to another team to be the head coach. And they bring one of their top position coaches, as their defensive coordinator. But when you start losing most of your defensive staff and you start losing all of these guys, I think that's what makes it harder for the Ravens. But yeah, I don't want to get into a divisional preview at this time, but definitely agree there, Knight. But yeah, would I like a splash play or two move? Yeah, absolutely. It is what it is. But yeah, let me throw this out here before we end here. One, do you want to see Snead back on an extension, or are you fine with him being traded? And if you're watching this later, guys, go ahead and ladies, let us know in the comments. Leave a comment. Like, where are you at on this? You definitely want them back. You definitely want them traded. You don't really care either way. Whatever happens, happens. Question number one. Number two is, like, if he gets traded, what do you want back? Like, are you expecting draft pick? You want him to be traded for the Chiefs to move up in the draft, even if that's swapping draft picks, multiple draft picks, and getting better ones out of it. For instance, like I think it was the Titans don't have a third rounder, but they have like number 38. They don't want to give up their second rounder, but would they swap 38 for 62? Is that something you would be interested in? Or would you be interested in like packaging 32 and Snead to move up to like 17? Just let me know. Just interested in what you guys think about the whole Snead situation and kind of where your mind's at with all of it. Knight says Snead extension is okay, but if you get a good deal, some depth pieces and a second rounder would be better. Yeah, and I mean, I've seen all kinds of different deals floated out today. A third rounder this year and a future second or third. Swapping seconds this year and getting a third next year. Different things out there. And I don't know that I really have a preference. And I'm not going to spend a lot of energy, getting excited or playing armchair GM because it isn't going to happen, how I might think it should happen in my head. So I got enough things. Excuse me. I have enough things in my life that I can't control. So something is, as much as I love sports, something as frivolous as sports isn't something that I'm going to use my energy on, because right now a lot of my energy is figuring out how I'm going to teach 5 and 6 year olds how to play flag football. So well, and right on cue, I am losing my voice. So, like I said, leave a comment. Let me know. Comment on the video. Let me know what you guys are thinking, what your preference is with Snead, and any other questions or comments you guys have. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of BAK Talk. And what's Knight hitting me with here at the end? People often forget Richard Sherman in Seattle was a great cornerback. Richard Sherman and other defensive coordinator schemes was just okay. Yeah, I knew what you meant there. Yeah, and that's a good point. And you never know. You just try to pick a guy. You try to find someone who has the skills that translate to your scheme. Maybe in the case of Richard Sherman, they were more focused on other skills that he brought, knowing, that he wasn't going to be the perfect fit. Maybe they, those were things they were willing to give on because he had other things, right? Like his brain or his leadership, his, coaching his positional teammates, whatever it was, to where they valued that more than, the fact that he lacked, the speed to stick with Sammy Watkins or whatever it was. But yeah, it's a good point. But thank you for watching this episode. Hopefully we'll be back next Wednesday as well, 7:30 p.m. Arrowhead time. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Everyone take care, and we'll be back.
got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war, we score at will. We're the Super Bowl champs, the king of the hill.